Richard Osborne, Pickens County Planning Director, and Ethan Calhoun is our State Planning Coordinator for the Northwest Georgia region, Northwest Georgia. And I'm really glad that we've got representation from Nelson, Talking Rock County, City of Jasper, folks, in different parts, and public and private interests. And in your agenda, you'll see what we're going to do is first go over the input results from the last 6 to 8 months, talk about majority versus significant minority views, and if there's any additional comments, then go ahead and we can discuss them. I understand that sometimes people don't like to talk in group meetings, so get with me later on anytime you want to, phone, email. I'll be glad to meet with you in person. Then we're going to have everybody get up and walk around the room and look at the particular areas that you may be interested in. Some people may be interested in the whole thing. And, but if you have particular comments about Talking Rock over there, Hinton and Blaine over here, different areas, then write down your thoughts. And Ethan will kind of go over the future land use, zoning, development map areas. And then he will go into just quickly talk about how the draft plan, the time frame, when that's approximately going to be completed and available for public review and input. So first, in terms of the comprehensive plan input results, you've got in front of you the 2-page front and back summary. The first topic, contributing factors to the Pickens area quality of life. Looking at the majority view and minority view, and where does this come from? This comes from the 743 responses we got from the 2017 survey, the last 4 stakeholders meetings, different individual emails, phone calls, face-to-face discussions I've had, Ethan's had with different folks. Are there any comments regarding contributing factors to the quality of life? Okay, next topic, factors holding back this area from having an exceptional quality of life. I always want to think about getting from good to great. Is there anything in here that you see surprised you or that you want to provide additional comments to?
Richard, he's saying that under the minority view, those 3 things, that's their concern about trying to improve the quality of life? What does that mean?
Right, so under the topics of what are some things that hold the area back from having an exceptional quality of life, when I say significant minority view, I'm not talking about 2 or 3 people's comments. I'm talking about 5 or 10 or 15, and then the majority is numerous comments that were not necessarily exactly word for word, but similar. So, right, there was a significant minority view that to some people, the Pickens area population is growing too fast. To some people, there's too much traffic. And to some people, the area is losing its natural scenic character at a rate that's too fast. Now, yes, some of that is all about perspective. If you're from a very small place and this is what you're used to, and you're not used to Atlanta traffic, then you may think that West Church Street traffic can be horrendous at certain times. Other people who may be used to larger areas may think that West Church Street is fine.
Richard?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if this is the place, but can anybody bring up, at least I experienced this, a very poor internet or communication quality, availability? I live in eastern Pickens County off of Cove Road, and our internet is pathetic.
Yes, sir.
The same is true of most of Big Canoe.
Yes, sir. That was mentioned under economic development.
Okay, got it.
And I can kind of put that as an echoed comment for what holds the area back.
From Gwinnett, and they're in shock.
Sure.
kids must be just decimated.
Or even trying to work from home.
Yeah.
All right, the next topic, where would you take out-of-town visitors? And you see that most people would go up and down the Burnt Mountain corridor as a very scenic area, and then they would take them to downtown Jasper and downtown Talking Rock. Any comments, discussion?
I don't mean this the way it sounds, but what is there to do in downtown Jasper
Or talking about.
or talking about?
A follow-up comment that was mentioned multiple times about downtown Talking Rock specifically was the park and the creek and the enjoyment spring, summer, and fall. Downtown Jasper, you know, is kind of a variety of things.
I sort of take offense to that because, I mean, we do have really to be honest with you, the best park in Pickens County. You know, and, you know, the stores, the antique stores and stuff, and just relaxed, atmosphere there and stuff, and, why wouldn't you go to Talking Rock? I'll be honest with you.
My granddaughter loves it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, it's a nice place to
There's more to do in
visit.
Talking Rock than there is in Jasper, I think.
So we close our Main Street about 3 times a month for social events in Jasper that have ranged from everything from car shows to mid-level entertainment. So there's a lot to do in Jasper. Now, I'm a little bit prejudiced because I live a half a mile from the crossroads.
Well, and I will tell you that, you know, I'm the fire marshal for the city of Jasper, and in the last couple of months, there's been a lot of interest in a lot of shops that's, we know you was on Main. There's a,
Coco's, Daisy's,
yeah,
a lot of
Coco.
women's shops, there's
And my
3
understanding,
restaurants.
my understanding is that possibly that Designs on Main is gonna, in the old Hallmark store there,
I've heard that too.
where the Weeks Jewelry store is, there's gonna be an antique, antique, shop going into that building there. You've got, New York, I love New York pizza that went into the old sidebar.
That's right, 4
That's
restaurants.
an excellent place to eat, if y'all haven't already tried that. They're still working on the service, but, you know, so there is,
Getting there.
there's some things that's moving into Main Street of Jasper. You know, I mean, they could be more, but.
Takes time.
Sonny, I'll ask you this question. This was brought up back when they had when the city hired the consulting firm from Atlanta on the development traffic and so on.
Right.
One of the biggest concerns of the merchants was there's no signage indicating where anything is located. If you go into a lot of small towns, at an intersection, they'll have a sign that will say, so-and-so's this way and this way. There's no signage telling you where things are.
You rolling over there, Mary? So, as you may know, I'm also the chairman of the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and one of our committees that spearheaded that study, the Downtown Alliance Committee, is still active, and one of our main projects, probably the next thing that we will try to do is some way signage, and Jerry can elaborate. We've struggled a little bit with the political will, but we really have things moving that way, and that is one of the things that's on our list.
That's good.
Jerry, you want to?
Yeah, so we have a banner signage initiative that is kind of a stepping stone because it's something that we can act upon pretty quickly. There were some things that I had to do to get approval for that. I have a meeting set up with Georgia Power tomorrow because the poles along the 53 corridor on both sides belong to Georgia Power, and to put anything on those poles, they have to approve it. So Georgia Power is coming to meet with me tomorrow. I have specific locations that I'm going to seek their approval. Once they approve that, we have to probably circle back with the city to get some, a little bit of some administrative things done on that end. And then we're ready to put them up. And the advantage of the plan that we're utilizing, it can be done very quickly.
Good.
So we have been working on that. The pieces have fallen into place, and you should see something up, like I said, very, very quickly. I would say within, 60 days max, hopefully a lot sooner than that.
I'd like to also share that we, last week, we had our board retreat, the chamber did, and we went over to Rome, which is one of the Georgia excellent main streets, or something like that, Jim. The National History Preservation folks have started this program, and the chamber spent the day visiting with the Department of Community Affairs lady that kind of oversees that program, to see what the nuts and bolts of doing a Main Street USA program in Jasper are. So really early but very exciting meeting, and that committee continues to work on some of the other things, including possibly a sign on 515, even though the DOT challenges are pretty big, to kind of direct people toward downtown. And we have already have some investors who are willing to invest in that. We've done some sign design and some other things. So there's some things happening.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Jasper is closed down on Sundays. So, I mean, all the shops are closed on Sunday. So unless there's some event, there's nothing open.
Wings
So I
Hours,
don't see how, I just don't see how Jasper is a place you could take anyone. I can see the Tate House, I can see Woodbridge Inn, but downtown Jasper, there's actually more going on in Talking Rock on Sunday afternoon than there is in Jasper.
Well, there is, I mean, most all the shops open up around lunchtime till, around 5.
On Sunday, the women's shops open up.
Talking
Rock.
That's what he
Right.
talking about.
That's the mayor talking wrong over there.
Yeah, I'm the mayor talking, that's fine.
So there's more, I've been surprised. I've gone over there with a few friends.
I think there's a
Of what's
rule about
going
that
on.
Sunday stuff, isn't there?
Well, a lot of people comes to Talking Rock to take photographs, a lot. To be honest with you, more than I would ever imagine. You come down there on prom night, prom day, and it's just covered up, so.
It's really too bad you can't take advantage of the train sitting there.
Well, now they do, now they do take photos and stuff, around the train and stuff, and then we have, but we're working on that. We've got the 2 passenger cars that we could, actually try to do something with, on that to do it. But, it's all boils back down to money, and sewer.
Agree.
So I mean, it's not just something that you can, on a budget of ours.
Yeah, you need sewer there
Yeah.
to open up the trains for a restaurant or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Because you've got so many strung together that you could really have a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
If someone, and you've got the creek behind it, so you've got other things going with it.
Yeah.
I just, I was just down there,
Oh, yeah.
I and I just thought that was a great opportunity.
Okay, it is.
Takes money though.
Yeah, it takes time. It takes time to get everybody on board, the thing.
I want to ask, Rich, if I can, Jerry a question. Jerry, you know a lot about railroads, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think there's any prayer or chance of ever getting passenger service, tour service on the rail line of the new owner?
That is a significant challenge because that is not a strong money-making opportunity for any freight railroad, and that is primarily a freight railroad. They also have limited amounts of rolling stock, and primary, coupled with that, one of the larger issues they have is they do have a grain train that comes through there that's a unit train. It is unscheduled, and that's one of their primary revenue generating trains that comes through there. And so to add something that would potentially disrupt that, they have been very reluctant to do so. So I think it's as Mayor Banks said, that a lot of these things really just come down to the money, and I don't think the money scenario at this point in time works for them based on my conversations.
Because that's what made Blue Ridge was the railroad. It's the same railroad.
Yeah, I do know that at one time, the owner of the, actually bought the depot down here, actually owned one of them. At one time, they was talking of it, but, my understanding is one of the bridges, or the trussels is washed out or something up the railroad track there. So, I mean, it would cost a lot of money. I mean, you know, I mean, they've already had 2 derailments.
You have a different standard for passenger
Yeah.
than you do for freight, and the trestles are old and they are extremely expensive to repair. And as some of you may recall, some years ago, we had looked at, and actually we're getting a lot of cooperation with the Emirates on trying to do a small scenic railway down through the, along the 53 corridor, because there's some interesting features there, like a switchback, and we're talking about using Edwards cars, not even real trains, that would make it a little less impactful on the line. But they did an extensive bridge study, and the cost to repair those bridges and bring them up to passenger standards was just very cost prohibitive, and it just really put an end to it, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Some of this discussion transitions into the next topic. What projects would you support to improve the area? The number 1 and number 2 most often mentioned were invest in the downtowns, improve public parks. However, the third and very vocally significant minority view was increase and improve water and sewer infrastructure. So now we can get particularly into certain topics. In economic development, you see there were a lot of comments about what the area should and should not be. As you look down this laundry list of options, anything stand out to you? Any additional comments or questions? We had a couple of kind of summary remarks based on lots of similar comments. One was the majority view: consider a holistic approach to having all necessary infrastructure in place to promote commercial growth. And that word infrastructure did not just mean water and sewer. It meant also the zoning in place, also working with private property owners to consider different options. Is the land available at a somewhat reasonable price? Are there various options? Are certain land, certain pieces of land better than others? Given that Pickens has got a lot of positives and challenges with floodplain, with steep slopes, different things like that. And then a significant minority view was promote the area as a less regulated, more conservative, safe, patriotic alternative to many metro Atlanta communities.
Richard, will significant minority views be included in the plan?
Yes, it'll be good to really have, because everything in here on this summary sheet is not 1 or 2 people saying this. I mean, it's, at least 5 people, saying some of these, and the majority, numerous people. Yes, I think it's, it's good to get as much of this in there.
I just think the technical college, for instance, I hate to see that as a minority view, but if it was, because that's really an asset that has evolved over the recent years. And for those of you who may or may not know, there is a significant amount of activity going on around bringing that to a higher level of input in our community, if that makes sense. And of course, Reinhardt's also there right now doing their nursing school. So I think education, if you look at the things that a community has to have, education's one, hospitals are the other. So just a comment.
Richard, again, I'm looking at this minority views. I like a lot of the minority views. I mean, I don't know why they're minority views, because they're really good. So I guess when you put all this together, how do you?
Because less people
voted?
put them down.
That's the only reason, is there were fewer people that voted for these versus the other side, huh?
Yeah, it's really in terms of statistical significance, right? Yes, sir.
better word than minority, Richard.
Yeah, good point.
I've been thinking about it, it hasn't come up with anything better, but that's,
And one comment I'd make on the minority view on that, pretty much all of that is in place right now. If you read through that, that's pretty much what's happening today, for what it's worth.
Yes, ma'am.
Where does the water fit into the economic development side? I know it's in the system above, but I think it's pretty critical for it to be highlighted in economic development.
Yes,
Roll
I-
that into that infrastructure, that and internet.
Correct. In various wordings, there were many comments that said, you know, you pick a road, 53 or 515 or whatever road it is, if significant commercial, industrial, institutional growth is desired, water and sewer infrastructure that's robust and accessible, I mean, it's got to be there.
But that's not specifically pointed out on the majority list.
It's just not here identified.
It's kind of buried within the holistic approach.
Okay.
And it's,
So specifically call out water and sewer?
Yes.
Okay.
and there's no mention at all about stormwater, and like it or not, that's gonna be an issue.
Right, it's one of those things that the Pickens area is on the cusp. Dawson, in the last 5 years, was thrust into state requirements, and so they now have had to allocate resources. They had a guy who was a full-time employee in blank position, you know, maybe an inspector or a code enforcement officer. He had to be transitioned into being a full-time stormwater manager. And that was a significant cost to the taxpayers, and you know, it was a change for Dawson County. Pickens is probably in the next 5 years going to get that state requirement.
Like it or not, it will happen. You know, whether it's 5 years or 10 years.
Yes, sir.
You need to, those that plan, care better.
Sure.
What pushes you over, Richard?
Concentration of development and proximity to Atlanta and a few other things. You know, it's probably related to also transportation, you know, impervious versus pervious. It's probably a bunch of factors.
Is
Yes, sir.
EPA, is that it?
Oh, yeah,
That's who it is, EPA?
yeah.
Brings it down to us. That would say that?
Yeah, it would be the state EPD, and I can't remember if DCA is involved, but they probably are as well, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like they're 1% on it.
All right, housing, there was a split in terms of density and apartments. So the majority view is apartments may not be appropriate for this area, but there was a very vocal, significant, lesser number of folks who said, you know, if this area is going to grow, if this area is going to have a diversified economy, you know, some type of small lot homes or condos, townhouses, or apartments, or a combination, you know, may be desired. But if it is, it's seen as most appropriate in Jasper. You know, that's where the sewer is. That's a political decision, of course, in terms of rezoning and planning for that. From what you see here on housing, any additional thoughts or comments or questions?
Well, I just think it's more difficult to have affordable homes when they're on large lots, so they, you know, they have opposite views, so.
This county needs, city and county needs inexpensive homes for young couples and needs apartments, because not everybody can afford a 3-acre lot, which runs your property taxes up, maintenance up, and we ought to be able to have half-acre lots for smaller homes, and we ought to be able to have apartments that are within walking distance of downtown.
I think now the minimum lot size is 1 acre for a home, isn't it? In zoning.
It varies. In the county, there's flexibility. Multiple structures can be on the same piece of property. So it depends on the soil type, the ability to get septic, the distance from property lines and other structures, it varies.
But out in the county, I think minimum lot size is 1 acre. I mean, and depending on the zoning, and if it's zoning large lot size or whatever the terminology is, it may be 3 acres or 5 acres. But I think the minimum is 1 acre. I don't think there's anywhere out in the county it can be less than 1 acre.
For a land split, it depends on the zoning
Well,
out in
you're
the
talking
county,
about
yes ma'am.
family or something like that?
Right, so because the county is more flexible and has less regulation, somebody can have, let's say, 5 acres, and they can permit a new house that could be 5,000 square feet or 500 square feet. You know, we don't have a minimum size house, we don't have a maximum size house, and if they have 5 acres, they could potentially put multiple houses, or a house and a barn and a storage building. You know, it's kind of, it depends on a variety of factors, but yes ma'am, in general, that's
I
allowed.
think it's 1, I think it's 1.
But now, is it not an acre and a half for a septic system?
Well,
If you have a well,
If it's right, yeah,
and then water it is an acre, I think.
yeah, that's right.
Richard, you know, so much of this in my mind gets back to the lack of sewer in the county. If you want to develop the county commercially, you gotta have sewer. You're not gonna get a big user in on a septic system. And if you want to have affordable housing and have it on half-acre lots, you're not going to be able to do that without sewer. And it was brought up earlier, but I think that if the county wants to develop economically in terms of businesses and homes, sewer is just a key issue, and there is no sewer in the county today.
I think there's another issue, and that has to do with homeless and indigent individuals in the community. My wife is the president of the Catholic Women at Holy Family. She's an active member of St. Vincent de Paul, and this great community of Pickens, and everyone donates a ton of money to Pickens, to that organization, the Screen People. Can only get it once a year, but one of the hardest problems they have is to try to find a place for the homeless. And then if they can find them a job, there's no transportation to get them to a job, because by the nature of being homeless, they don't have cars or other transportation. So they're in this cycle that just goes on and on. Don't know what the solution is, but you can't ignore it, and it's consuming an awful lot of volunteer money in the community, whether people realize it. So it's fairly significant.
Do you have any numbers on that?
I can certainly get the numbers, but you know, it's just a question of, if you just talk to St. Vincent de Paul, and they can give you, just without giving you names, they can give you the challenge, because they only serve Pickens County. And so it's an endless challenge for them to try to find an alternative solution. And it goes from everywhere from paying to water and electric to heat and homeless, and how do you get the kids to school. All of that gets bundled when you're homeless for whatever reason. So I just mentioned that as, it's not really on the list, but you can't ignore the fact that it's certainly consuming a lot of energy in the county behind the scenes.
You're talking about more than 100?
I don't want to speculate, but I'd say it is easily.
Yeah, so the St. Vincent de Paul, I'm Denise Kern. I go to Our Lady of the Mountains. So Joe Schroeder heads up St. Vincent de Paul, and he has all the numbers. So I have his contact information. If I can talk to you afterwards, and then maybe we can come up with something that might help.
So if we're saying that your group handles 100, you know, what about other groups?
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the things I do know is that because St. Vincent de Paul has really done this pre-screening program very professionally, lots of other denominations and groups raise money and give it to them, because they have nationally, but certainly in statewide, but nationally, they have put together a pretty concrete program. You know, it says, look, you have to come in, you have to be interviewed, we have to be sure you're the Pickens County representative. I don't want to belabor this, but the number's pretty significant, and I see it just, I mean, I've bought heaters for a trailer because they don't have any way to purchase it. Now, St. Vincent de Paul gave me the money back, but they can't even order one to have it delivered. If somebody that doesn't have a card or a way to purchase it can do that. So we do have a bigger problem than perhaps is articulated here, because I don't see it on the list, and we ought to be mindful of it, so.
Well, one other thing is also is running these EMS calls, these emergency calls in these, in the homes and the apartments and whatnot. You know, you're seeing larger groups in there, that you're actually seeing beds scattered all throughout, besides.
There may be 12
couches,
people in a place
couches
because they
and
have no other
furniture.
choice.
You know, so I mean, you know, I don't know how that figures into the population, is that, you know, but there's a lot of people that's.
Is that extended family or for just friends?
No,
I think
well,
it's a lot of extended family.
It's, yeah, extended families, you know, grandkids, kids, you know, I mean, it's, you know, you're seeing a lot more of that. A lot more of larger groups, you know, family members.
I guess my only closing remark, I don't think it's getting better. And I think the numbers are continuing to rise. Now maybe, I mean, I know that people get jobs and they can't get to them, so then they lose the job. So that's, you know, another whole challenge, and we're just not big enough to have public transportation, Uber, or some solution that might work to move them around. So that was just.
Thank you.
And that brings up the mobile homes. I know no county wants mobile homes. Forsyth, Dawson, Gilmer, but we have a large population that really can't buy a house. So I'm not, you know, I bring it up as an issue, not necessarily to promote it, but I bring it up as an issue with someone that drives through the county and sees some of the homes and some of the mobile homes people live in. We do have a problem.
Well, even campers, I mean, I think you addressed it, or I overheard you address that
That's right.
issue about as far as permanent power lease. And a lot of people, that's the only thing they can afford is a camper to live in. You know, I mean, you know, so.
And the county very strict on that.
I'm not saying that we're wrong on that, but I'm just saying that a lot
It's a
more
problem.
people are, just give you an example. I work part-time for a propane company, and you'd be amazed at the people that use these 20-pound cylinders to heat with. Now, you take
Every other day, right?
you're right, but you take that you fill up a 20-pound, which only holds about 4 or 5 gallons, and they're in there every other day, and they're paying twice as much for that as if they have a tank set. But the problem is coming up with the $200 or $300 to pay for it, because they can easily scrap around $20 or so to get a propane. And that gives you another problem, is alternate sources of heat causes, you know, fires. You know, when they do space heaters and other means of heating, you know, carbon dioxide, I mean, so it does have a domino effect on the services that the county provides.
Thank you.
Well, when half of our children get subsidized lunch programs,
Or now.
you know, well, at least 50%, then we know there's a problem. We know there's a problem.
Thank you. All right, let me switch. I'm just going to have to move on. Let me switch gears to a really big picture topic, which is intergovernmental coordination. The majority view in terms of numbers is that there's good but not great coordination, but there's been statistically significant numbers of folks who have asked that what be considered is everything from consolidating some services to consolidating entire governments. And we know that you know, some local governments provide lots of services. Some are shrinking or staying stable. We know, of course, that Nelson recently disbanded their police department. Talking Rock, for example, there's a good intergovernmental agreement with the county where, at this point anyway, the county provides, anytime somebody wants a license or permit or an inspection related to a permit in the town limits of Talking Rock, that goes through the county. And that's based on an agreement between both elected officials. So you see the comments here, anything to add about that?
I'll make a personal statement. I'm an elected official, and there seems to be a lot of concern, wrongly in my part, that, from my viewpoint, that I support the combination of our government, but whether it be water or anything else. I want to go on the record as saying that I don't know whether I support it or not, but I certainly would like to see us all in the same room talking about it. And if the numbers then make sense, make an intelligent planning decision to move on it. So again, a little bit of politics coming in here, but I'm open-minded and like looking at better options. And for the benefit of my public, I want them to know that I hadn't made any decisions on any of this, and it won't be my decision to make, so.
How does Talking Rock feel about that?
Well, a lot of them still wants to be a town, you know, and I asked somebody, a member, because we do have about 74 people in town.
Population, but, okay.
Yeah, population, but the problem is getting people that wants to serve on town council or city council or do anything else. And so I approached this one person and you know, asked them, and they said, well, we really don't have any time. So then I said, well, you know, we're gonna have to come up with a way of funding, you know, getting a little bit more funding. And so I mentioned about garbage, because we provide garbage service free of charge for the citizens. And I said, well, we might have to decide on that, or disband. He said, well, I sort of like the street lights, you know, I sort of like the garbage service. You know, so you know, you think, well, okay, all right, so you want to still be a town, but, you know, and the problem is that even though we're a small town, there's a lot of things that we still have to comply with the state of Georgia. You know, as far as E-Verify or audits and so forth. So that all costs money. You know, it is at a point where, you know, we're going to have to do something one way or the other, because, you know, the expenses of just running, you know, it's like a fire department or any other thing, or even your household. It costs so much just whether you do anything or not, you know. And if you want to do anything more, it costs more. So there is, you know, but like I say.
Well, you mentioned that one of the things holding you back in terms of perhaps the growth you'd like to see is a lack of water and sewage.
Well, mainly sewage, yes.
So if there was some effort to bring together some ability to offer sewage on a broader basis.
Yes. Now, you know, that might be that the county and the city of Talking Rock, you know, in the northern section, you know, maybe, you know, it's not going to happen overnight, because I'm pretty sure they EPD and all that mess red tape that you have to go through. But if two was on board wanting the same thing, and you talk to the representatives and everything else, that you know, you might get somewhere quicker, you know. But
You definitely would get there quicker.
yeah. So you know, numbers, you know, like I say, numbers do count.
Well, Lonnie, wouldn't you agree? I mean, it's worth talking about, right?
Well, I just motioned to Richard, I'd like to say one thing. This intergovernmental, I guess I look at it entirely different, because I've been accused by some of the employees of the city of Jasper of being a professional meeting goer, because I spend lots of meetings with Pickens County government, Georgia DOT, water and sewer, water partnerships in Rome. The mayor has went to DCA meetings. I'm on the board of the Chamber of Commerce. I can pick up the phone right now and call any of these people. I've done it. And say, I need this, and they have never turned me down. Never. The sheriff's department. Whatever I need, they're there. They have come to the city and asked for things. They got it. If it was within reason, you know, if I was being unrealistic, I'm sure Commissioner Jones say, Lonnie, wait a minute, you know, do you really need this way or something? But I've never asked for anything that we didn't get. The city sells us water. The city sells water to the county down here on Dragon Drive to help their water stuff. County sells us water at Hill City. We work together. This whole article here acts like that we are not cooperating. I give an A rating to everybody that's on this list. I mean, they name them here. Sheriff, Commissioner, Chamber, DOT, State DCA. These people, we work together. I know somebody on the street that is not involved may not see that or realize that. But we do work together and we do help each other in a storm event, a disaster, the emergency management. We meet right down here in the 911 building. Everybody comes together. People from Bent Tree, Big Canoe, fire, law enforcement, city, county, everybody can come down there and we can take care of the problems. So, you know,
that's the way it should be.
myself, I think this is really not an issue because I see it daily. I participate in it, and so does everybody else around here. Yes, there's things that could be better. There's things that I might ask for that I don't get, but there's things that they might ask for that they don't get. But there'll be a reason.
So are you speaking just to the issue of city-county consolidation, or are you speaking to
I'm speaking
the
about-
study of a water and sewage authority?
I am talking about city and counties not working together, and this, to me, this accusation is saying that we don't work together, that we should improve. There might be areas we do need to improve, but we work together. I mean, I don't see what the issue is with that. If consolidation, Lonnie Waters don't agree with it. As an employee of the city of Jasper, as far as resident of Pickens County, if somebody could sit down and prove to me that that was best and it could improve everything, I'll listen to anything. But, you know, don't accuse the governments of this county and state DOT and everybody. I go to DOT meetings in Cartersville. I just don't want the people that might watch this video to get the wrong idea. We work together. There's procedures that has to be done in county, state, city, all government. Sometimes it may not be what we want to hear. But I just don't want people to get the wrong idea because we live in a great area and the government's in this area. And we had a meeting just Monday. DOT was there. City, county, the heads of departments. Richard, you sat in it. We do this once a month. We hear each other's problems. We comment. We talk about jobs that overlap because if the county's doing a road where we got a water line, you know, Lonnie, where you got those water lines, we don't want to dig them up. So, I mean, we communicate, we work together. I'm very proud of what we've got here. Very proud. And like I said, I mean, I'm repeating myself. I just don't want people that might watch a video or hear something on the street to think that we're not working together and we're not trying to cooperate and do what's better for this community and this county, because we are. Everybody's got the same goal. Some of us go about different. So that's my statement. I mean, as far as consolidation, you know, whatever works best for this county and the residents of it and the cities, that's one thing. But they're going to have to show me before I would support it, in answer to your question.
That's fair.
Thank you. I'll transition now to land use and zoning. it's interesting, to me anyway, that the majority views were somewhat polarized. A lot of folks said, keep the low-density zoning, but also a lot of folks said, there's a barrier to development when it's politically tough to upzone, to rezone from residential to commercial, from agriculture to commercial, whatever. So there's a lot of conflicting views, and then you see, the minority or statistically significant views in the other column. Any comments about that? Okay. The issue mentioned the second most often because it so directly relates to quality of life everywhere, no matter if you're in Hinton or Nelson or Talking Rock or wherever, is Parks and Recreation. I mean, by far, the number one on this topic, most often checked off opinion was improve and increase the Parks and Recreation. And folks covered everything. They covered the active, the ball fields, the pool, and they covered the passive, the conservation area, the trails, whether it's for people, hiking trails, horse trails, bike trails. The bottom line is folks just want more of it, and they want, where it exists, they want it to be quality. They want it to be well maintained and robust.
One of these subjects I'm totally ignorant. How many soccer fields are available in the county? Because I'm the committee chairman for the troop at Big Canoe, and a lot of the boys in our troop play soccer. And they go to Dawsonville and Forsyth and Cherokee. And I just don't know if there's soccer fields in Pickens County, are there?
Very few.
Recently, I saw a Parks and Recreation evaluation that was done 6 or 8 or 10 years ago. Did you send me that? Somebody sent it to me, but I looked through it, and at that point in time, we were way behind on what we needed related to ball fields and such, and nothing's changed. So, and it was 6 or 8, 10 years ago. Ben, was that you? You remember? It doesn't matter where it came from, but it was something the Parks and Recreation Pickens County did, and we were greatly deficient.
One of the families just joined our troop, and the young man played soccer, and they're going over to Dawson County to play.
And that's a tourism opportunity too. If you have quality fields that tournaments can be conducted at and such, then people from outside your county can come in and play. And some of
spend
the
money there, buy gasoline and fast food.
some of the fields that are holding those are really not really your nicer things. So.
Richard, I'd like to add a quick comment about that. So right now, I mean, we've recognized for quite some time that we need some improvements in the area of the Parks and Recreation. The underlying factor, and I hate to keep going back to, it comes down to a financial issue, but at the root of a lot of things is the financial issue. This is one of the reasons why the mountain bike park up on the north end of the county that finally is coming to fruition has taken so long. We don't have public funding to go out and acquire these places and operate them, so we have to work on alternative paths. And that is it's a long and difficult process, but if you remain steadfast, again, as you can see with the mountain bike park, you can make it happen. As we speak, there is a core group of individuals that has come together within the Chamber of Commerce, and the objective is to assess our existing parks. And I'll use Dorothy Wigginton as an example. That was one during the election that a lot of negative things were said about that park. It has some basic infrastructure there, but I think it has a great deal of potential. So what this group would like to do is basically put together a list of existing parks, do some analysis, include the county and the city in the process, make some recommendations of how those could be improved, maybe even how much it would cost, as well as identify areas where there is a need, starting from ground zero. I've had some preliminary conversations with Chairman Jones about this, because in the upcoming SPLOST, there are some line items that are kind of falling out, like the funding for the library, things like that. And that appears to create an opportunity to inject new opportunities into the upcoming SPLOST, which would provide the funding to do these things that we would like to have. Because I believe, again, the Parks and Rec is very important. It's very important for our citizens, but it's also very important to try to attract people and businesses into our community. We have to be competitive. And that's one area that at this point in time, it looks like, I believe we've got a pretty good process started so that we can achieve those goals.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, the park on Lumber Company Road is not used. It's simply not used. Now, I think it'd really be used if they just put in playground equipment. And people would go there with their children, but it's simply,
Are there any signs? I didn't even know there was one there.
Yeah,
there's a
it's-
sign, yes.
It's kind of a hiking park. Our budget in Jasper, 1% of our budget is parks and recreation.
Jerry, the point is, and Mike Havlin is not here, but he would be to comment on this. We have a lot of money that comes from the SPLOST tax, and this county or city, I'm not aware that any of that money's been set aside for future infrastructure or targeted projects that we need in recreation or anything else. Reserve funds, I think what happens is we operate on 100% of the money and there's nothing left over to set aside to replace, like the swimming pool. That's pretty bad, in fact it's horrible. And that's the only one, public one in the whole county. And I don't know if there's a lake in the county where kids can swim because the lakes are either private at Bentry or Big Canoe. So what do you do with the kids that want to swim in this county? You go to Cherokee County, they got a beautiful facility. So I think whoever handles the finances and the allocation of money, there ought to be a certain percent set aside for infrastructure improvement.
Well, certainly that'll be one thing, and through this process, I think those funding mechanisms will be examined. There are apparently some interesting funding mechanisms utilized in Cherokee County that could have to be a model, but again, the objective is to put together a package to present, and also, again, work in conjunction with our elected officials so that we are collaborating on this plan, and then we find the ways to try to make it happen.
Thank you. Next topic is public safety, which was not mentioned a whole lot, which really speaks highly of this community. I mean, there were so many people who said, this is a safe community. And the main comment, concern about public safety mentioned over and over again was out in the county, there are certain areas that have a high ISO rating that need better fire coverage. But for the most part, you know, public safety earned high ratings. Any comments?
Well, ISO is a function, the good mayor here will help me on this, but ISO rate is a function of fire stations, qualified personnel, water resources, and equipment, and training.
I can tell you, it's the one place where government pool money can help every individual property owner to the maximum.
Right.
It is the one place to really put your money.
Well, it is, but, you know, it is also a what you would say a debt expense, because, you know, the ambulance service gives you, you know, money for running people to the hospital. But, you know, your fire department does not bring any foreseen revenue, you know, other than through inspections and stuff, but that would only cover the property salary for an inspector or something out there to make a safety inspection. So, I mean, you know, a fire department is just a big debt expense, you know, police departments, they bring in revenues for fines and speeches and stuff, but, you know, the fire department is.
What Roy's, I think, is referring to is a reduction in your insurance.
Yes, it would,
They say,
Yeah, the higher your ISO rating, the better you impact your insurance.
I think at one time,
Impacting it better.
And Ben here has been in the fire service too. I think, what is it, from a 10 to a 5, it's like a 50
Yeah,
or
it's
60%.
quite a bit, and I think
And then the rest of-
Jasper's a 4 or 5?
No, a 5.
Or 5. And West Cobb is just astronomical. Yeah, your fire insurance there is just tremendously high. And that's where you need most of your emphasis right now. I think they have allocated for the department.
Yes.
On the west side?
Yes, on the Moss Road?
Yeah, Carbon.
Is
And
there-
that will serve a area that's needed it for quite a while, make a tremendous impact out there.
Is there an ETA on the finishing of the project?
I think within this year, I think within this calendar year, I think they've got the property acquired, I think they've got their money set aside, so I think they're ready to go.
Jasper just committed to a new truck, and the next thing that we really need is something with a ladder on it. But that gets into the really big bucks. There's only a handful of buildings right now that we need it on, but for any multi-level structures moving forward, we'll need to do that.
That's about $750,000.
Correct.
Without,
Another item to consider is a lot of the major insurance companies like State Farm, they don't rate based on ISO. They rate based on zip code.
well, and you know, the insurance companies they all are trying to figure out a way to get around that.
That they are.
Yeah, they are.
So, I mean, I like, the lower the rating, the better,
Right,
but just because you have one doesn't mean you're gonna save money
right.
unless you find an insurance company that will write it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. The next topic is transportation. Comments are pretty straightforward, but anybody have any additional comments or questions? Okay. Last and most often mentioned was water and sewer. And the summary remark in the majority view that was mentioned so many times in different wording was the county and cities will not be able to attract quality developments of all types until there are effectively planned and managed water and sewer systems. Any comments, questions?
I'm gonna make a comment here. I don't think a lot of people, other than the people that work with it day to day, like Lonnie and Randy, I don't think people have really watched what's happened since the early 90s in Pickens County. There is a sewage source, and it's called the City of Jasper. The City of Jasper ran water not only to the City of Jasper, but all out in Pickens County for years. The county really didn't get into the water business in a big way till about the mid-90s. But here's what I want to tell you, talking about talking rock and sewage. Long-term plans, there's a reason that the City of Jasper did the annexation on 515. You'll notice you go to the racetrack or Nelson Tractor or all the stores down there, they have sewage with the City of Jasper. They have water availability. They've also extended their long-term plans past Talking Rock to Antioch Church Road. As growth comes in, like they have in the other areas, I think that's the long-term plan, whether there was a proposed water park at one time and things like that. Tanks and infrastructure have been put into place. And as the need for sewer, for different type growth in those areas comes along, you've already got the skeletal first part in place. Is that correct?
Yes, a few years ago, I did an annexation out 515 from Philadelphia Road to Antioch Road at Talking Rock. City of Jasper annexed in 1,600 acres, one of the largest annexations, and it was by choice of the landowners. During that time, we annexed in both sides of 515 going north. One tract of land was over 700 acres, the pulpwood land out there, both sides of 515. So that has been already annexed into the City of Jasper. During the annexation, all the landowners at that time signed easements for water and sewer lines to go parallel with 515. So it's in progress. We are waiting for development. We are waiting for a need. We are waiting for If the development comes and money comes, then the city can afford to lay 5 miles of water, and that's some pretty rough terrain. There will be lift stations, pump stations to get the sewer back to the treatment plant. So all of that is laying there, it's waiting on us. We're waiting on growth, we're waiting on population. If you get the better restaurants and more restaurants and chain restaurants, you gotta have the population. Well, that's traffic, and a lot of people don't wanna see the population come. But it's there. I mean, this was done several years ago, and we're sitting here from Jasper to Talking Rock and from Jasper to the racetrack with easements, right-of-ways, annexations already in place, and we built 3 million-gallon water tanks along 515. So the city of Jasper's sitting here, we're waiting for them to come, say, hey, I want to build here, and then we can sit down and discuss what it's going to take to build.
And on that point, what I've seen the city of Jasper do, they don't put it off on their taxpayers to go build this and wish something will come. What they do, when the companies come, they let them pay for the infrastructure and add it to your system. It's probably one of the smartest plans that you could ever have to facilitate the needs. But yeah, it's been happening for several years now.
Lonnie, what about your capacity to manage and process all?
We still have some capacity as far as the sewer plant. Dr. Proctor is on the council. They have talked about an expansion in the sewer plant. I mean, we're looking at what, a few $1 million?
A few, yeah. Well, it was 10, now it's down to 6, and then that last I heard it was 4. It's the only thing I know that keeps going down in cost, but
That doesn't normally
I think we're at 70% of our capacity now, and somebody told me recently that 80% is kind of what.
80% they should be under design.
So we're really close. So
90%
we-
of the construction.
So
we
we're
have all
working
these
with our
easements.
engineers and everything, looking at all that now.
Yeah, we were supposed to have a meeting last Thursday to a workshop, and the engineer requested an extension, so we didn't really get to sit down and talk about that. That same plant was discussed 8 years ago, and it was decided not to move forward with it. Even though I think it was part of the comprehensive plan that we started working on our infrastructure 8 or 10 years ago. But a lot of it boils down to having the resources, and there are, through some of the USDA and the what is it, HEPA, what's the department that can, there's low money out there that you can go into debt for. I'm talking about 1-2%, and but it's still got to be paid back. And both the county and the city have taken a hard stance on not raising taxes, and so that's one of the things that. Not raising taxes sometimes is the result of investing capital or spending capital so that you don't have to raise taxes. But it's a complicated formula that we're going to try to work through.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, since the city of Jasper is doing the sewer and the water, will they not, I would assume, reap the greater rewards of sales tax, which leaves the county out?
No, actually, the SPOS and the local office.
But it's a less, but it's a less percentage the county would get
No,
than
it's
if the
the same.
county developed it.
No, I mean, it's 1% that's equal, that's divided up, based on population, you know.
You can negotiate more, but.
Right, and also too, that, my understanding is, you don't get a tax break like in some counties, just being the city, is that right?
I'm not sure about that comment.
Oh, well, that's.
We pay county and city taxes, that's what you're
Right,
asking.
but I mean, some people, some counties give you a little bit of a break, you know, but I think this one, I think that we, you know, the county still gets, you know, their share of the taxes through the city. So basically, I mean, the county's not really losing out, so to speak.
I know what you mean.
Because actually, you know, the city's providing police and fire, water and sewer, and it's using the roads, the state roads, so the county.
It just seems like the county is just set back and.
Actually, every time the city of Jasper develops a Walmart, a Home Depot, a Kroger, when that sales tax is generated, we all share in it due to a formula. County
Well, I
does
understand
not
that.
lose anything.
I have to look at it. I have to look at it.
All right, so we're gonna take,
One more comment. It'd be nice to have a lot more SPOS dollars, but I mean, I gotta defend the fact that this particular SPOS, we desperately needed to put it in our roads. But as soon as we're able to have another one, you can do capital, you can do basically anything but labor. But you gotta plan for it. Once you commit it, that's what you're supposed to spend on. And the other thing, we could do a 1%, we could do a permanent SPOS, but that would have to go before the voters, just like any other SPOS, so.
all right, we're gonna take a 9.5-minute break. Please use the restroom, get some food and drink, walk around. When you see an area of interest to you, if you'd like, write a comment beside it for our next steps and where we're headed. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you all for coming out again. I'd just like to say that this has been one of the best groups we've had in a number of the communities that I've worked in doing this process. I see a lot of the same faces coming. The folks that have been coming to this have devoted time to it and have stuck with it, and y'all have come to essentially all the meetings and have kept a really good attendance, and there's been some really great discussion that's occurred. So where we're at right now in the planning process is that we've got a lot of input, qualitative, quantitative input that we are going to start getting into a document form, into basically the organization that Department of Community Affairs mandates that, or promulgates that we organize it. So we're going to take a lot of that information from the spreadsheets that you have. We're going to integrate that into the plan. We're going to see how that curtails with what was in the plan 10 years ago. So to see, has direction changed? Is it pretty much the same? If so, why or why not? And so now we're going to kind of go into those type of discussions, and we're going to start putting sort of pen on paper, if you will, and start to produce a final product. Part of that final product is on the walls around you, and this comes, for the most part, out of the previous plan, and that's the character areas that you see and the corresponding maps that go along with those that sort of give you an example of the community areas throughout the county and the cities, and some of the crossroads communities like Blaine and Hinton, and the type of development that should be there. So a lot of those things, those character areas, those carry a lot of weight in this plan, and specifically for zoning purposes and for population and things to that nature. We were talking earlier about sewer, population centers, and where services may be occurring at. So I will encourage you before you leave, if you haven't made comments on particular areas on those maps, that's where we can talk about, when we talk about sewer expansion or water expansion, or any service for that matter that is lacking or that is in a need of in a particular area, these character areas are where we need to address that at. Because to say we need water and sewer is very vague, it's not very strategic. In figuring out and looking at these maps, where are the locations that make sense for growth to occur, where it be industrial, commercial, residential, low density, high density, agriculture, etc. That's what these maps are for, and they, again, are a very crucial part of the implementation of this plan in its strategy. So, with that being said, that's where we're at in the process now. We're going to start creating this plan. What we will do next, the next public involvement that you're all encouraged to participate in will be to come to the public hearing, which will be the second public hearing. We had the first to sort of daylight the plan. We've had the stakeholder meetings and steering committee basically to sort of guide the direction of the plan. We're going to be meeting, of course, with local governments face-to-face to talk about projects, to implement these goals and any particular things that come out of the character areas. In the next work program, so the next 5 years, we're basically going to be creating a punch list for each local government to meet the needs and capitalize on the opportunities that have been highlighted and brought up in these meetings. And again, that will all be part of that final document that will be available for public review prior to adoption during that second public hearing. As a matter of fact, it'll be available for public review before we send it off to the State Department of Community Affairs to review. Now, what the state is interested in is, did we meet the minimum standards? Did we hold the public hearings? Did we have stakeholder, citizen involvement? To what degree did we get involvement? And did we, have we written a plan that meets essentially the blueprints that they give us? We'll get, that usually takes about a month, and we'll get that back. So that public hearing, be on the lookout. Richard will be sending out, I'm sure, an email that you are all on that list to get. And it'll be advertised as well in the paper, in the legal section. We expect that public hearing will probably be held at the end of March, 1st of April, so that we can get this plan off to the Department of Community Affairs promptly. So they'll have about a month to review it. We'll get that back from them, hopefully before the 1st of May, because we want to be able to get it back to them and get their thumbs up and say, you got it, it's ready for adoption. That's when it goes to the city councils. That's when it goes to the county commission for final adoption. And again, every local government, the cities and the county, adopt the plans locally. So they are the ones that get the final say in what's in the plans and what projects they are going to commit to that we've discussed here. So they will identify those projects. By the time they get back to DCA, local governments have already basically approved and green-lighted everything in the plan. So when we get it back, it should go right on those agendas and should pass through during the month of May as those meetings are held per government. And that'll be the end of it. We'll have it adopted for everybody by June, the end of June. That is our deadline. We'll meet that deadline, and that will make sure that Pickens County and all the cities maintain their qualified local government status, and that there will be potential for some of the projects that may come out of this plan to be assisted, aided by state, federal grant funding, permits, and et cetera. So that's, again, one of the biggest reasons we do this plan. The other reason is for the discussions that have occurred during these meetings to get people together and talk about the needs and opportunities of the community.
So, clarification, if there's an initiative in the plans that are adopted,
that's right,
and those initiatives needed grant money to either study or implement, that provides the vehicle for that funding. I know you're at a beauty contest, but in terms of what's available, but is that the way it works?
Okay, so if I understand your question, what you're saying is if there is an initiative or a need identified in the community to work towards something, a goal that's identified, if you're going to apply for grant funding and be competitive with all the other communities that are also applying for grant funding, absolutely. The comprehensive plan is the vessel, the first and foremost vessel that is going to be looked at. Now, communities can go deeper than the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan, again, it's comprehensive. It's all encompassing. It's 30,000 feet, general direction, general initiatives, policy statements and things like that, and projects as well. Their punch list is part of it, and that's a bit more of a specific thing. That's where your real competitive part comes in. If you're going to fund a project, if you know the only way to accomplish that, or the best way to accomplish it in a prudent and time-sensitive manner, is to apply for a grant funding or a very low-interest loan, then having it as a work item in that 5-year task list makes your chances of getting said grant incredibly higher than if it's a general statement somewhere in the plan, or if it's just not even mentioned at all. and we have to extrapolate.
So yeah, a specific example might be the comprehensive plan says sidewalks and cart paths are to be encouraged throughout the community. And then the project list, the 5-year work plan says specifically from the downtown traffic light in Jasper, we want ADA accessible, up-to-date, great sidewalk, 1 mile north on Main Street or 1 mile south on South Main Street. And then in the county, we want from the Tate Crossroads, 1 mile going to Tate Elementary School. And then in Nelson, from City Hall, we want 1 mile going east or west or north or south, whatever, in Nelson. And so it's called out, and then the follow-up, a grant is applied for, maybe for everybody as a lump, or just a certain county or just a certain city follows up. Yeah.
Yeah, so what's on this document is really a 10,000-foot view of these things. So when do you get to those specific action items? Is that what the city of Jasper does, the city of Ball Ground does, the county does? It adds to that before it's finalized? Where do those specific things come from? How do they get in there?
Right. I may not have sent everybody a draft copy, essentially a fill-in-the-blank copy of the 5-year work program for that project list. If you have not received it, please let me know. Obviously, everything that I do, everything that Ethan does is public information. I'll be glad to get you whatever you want. That's public information. And so that includes the 5-year program list. So let me know if you do not have that and if you want it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard, for making that point. Great example. Again, quantifiable projects carry a lot more weight in the plan. And just for food for thought when it comes to items in the work program, again, being the comprehensive plan, being more general, the community, or a specific community, could be the whole community, could talk about maybe looking to do more strategic plans focused on specific things in the community. That could be water or sewer, it could be land use and zoning, things like that. So parks and recreation as well.
Is there money for strategic plans?
Sometimes there are some opportunities for that sort of thing. It just depends on the scenario. But you can reach out to our economic development department as well at the regional commission. We have a department dedicated specifically to the assistance of grant application administration. And I always make sure to involve them in these things to look at projects, because part of identifying a project is identifying, first of all, who the responsible party is. Is it, if there's a city manager, administrator, is it, if you have multi-departments, who is the department head responsible for carrying out that project to its fruition? There's also a tag item on that that says, what's the funding source? Where is this funding supposed to come from? And what's the ballpark estimate of this project? And you may have specific estimates already, or it may be something that you just kind of have to extrapolate based on institutional knowledge and experience of the people working for the government. But that's essentially where we're at. That's where we're going. And thank you all so much for coming out. If anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask, call us. If anybody doesn't have my number, I've got my cards. Come see me before you leave, and we'll be glad to talk.